Americans borrowed $88 billion in the past year to pay for health care. It's no secret that medical care is expensive, but the fact that so many Americans are forced to finance it is problematic. Roughly 1 in 8 Americans needed to borrow money in some shape or form to cover a medical bill in the past 12 months, while nearly 25% of U.S. adults had to cut back on spending to pay for health care. Meanwhile, 65 million American adults avoided treatment for medical issues due to costs involved. Of course, you won't see this in Germany, you won't see that in France or the United Kingdom or anywhere in Europe or Singapore or Hong Kong or anywhere. Most of the world do not have to borrow and go into debt to pay for health care.
Imagine you ran a blood bank. Replace the word blood with credit, because that is the blood of an economy. And you have a bunch of dead banks in one room. And the credit sellers are putting all of that into the dead banks. The plasma that is needed to keep people healthy, they're having to borrow at ever-increasing interest rates and, in fact, killing themselves to make the dead banks seem like they're animated. This is a suicide culture to keep dead banks looking like they're not dead. It's not even like they're committing suicide to keep somebody alive, to feel like they have some existential connection to some power in the cosmic universe. These banks are dead, and people are blowing themselves up. They're killing themselves to keep dead banks from being animated and look like they're not dead. That's the U.S. healthcare system. Is it a pox on civilization? Absolutely.
We're going to cover that in our summer solutions. We're going to go over some solutions about this because there's been interesting studies just recently. And if you go to my Twitter stream, Stacey Herbert, you'll see I've been talking about it because a lot of it has to do with the monopolization. We say we have capitalism here, but monopolies run almost everything, or oligopolies run our telecom system, they run the healthcare system, but especially hospitals. Most places in the U.S. actually only have one hospital group in the whole area. So obviously, most expensive treatment is in a hospital, i.e. emergency care, cancer care, all that sort of stuff is done in a hospital, and if it's just one group setting the price. And it's not just lower earners who find healthcare financially burdensome. Overall, 45% of Americans are worried that a major health issue could drive them into bankruptcy. Seeing how medical debt is the #1 source, still, post-Obamacare, of personal bankruptcy filings in the country, that's not shocking. What is surprising, however, is that 33% of households earning at least $180,000 fear that a medical event can upend their finances completely. And they can, because it does. You have those drive-by doctors in the emergency rooms, in the hospital. The banking sector, which is the insurance sector, they conspire to send somebody in outside of your network to inflate your bill to like $40,000. So nobody, especially if you're only on $180,000, if you're on $180 million, you don't mind. But $180,000, that's still 30% of your income on a drive-by doctor.
So the banks are owned by the monopolists that are connected to the bank. So let's say you need an appendectomy and you're about to die. So you go to the hospital and they say, doctor, I need an appendectomy, I'm about to die. And they say, give $50,000 to bail out J.P. Morgan right now, and we'll operate. Give me $50,000 right now, and I'll operate. And you're like, well, I need to have my appendix taken out. I guess I have to give J.P. Morgan or Goldman or Wall Street $50,000 to help them to make them at dead bank look like they're not dead. Okay. Then you give them the $50,000. Then they, will go in there and they'll remove your appendix and do a sloppy job more than often than not. I know my appendectomy has a horrible scar. The guy used a serrated bread knife. Okay, it's like all jagged.
It's true.
Right? I mean, what a joke. The guy should have been baking bread down in the corner bakery and not trying to perform appendectomies.
Anyway, so to wrap this story up and tie it to the ongoing first stories is, you have people subjected to this healthcare system where you might suddenly, even though you're paying $30,000 a year in premiums, you might suddenly get hit by a drive-by doctor who loads you up with a $70,000 bill. So you're going into the casino and hoping to win big time on a Lyft IPO where the numbers don't add up. But hey, you're going to roll the dice and hope to become rich enough to afford your medical care. In the meantime, the Germans know best. They're buying gold.